So hi, one of the Good Noise podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with
TJ from the Bar Stool Preachers.
And we have some questions to say about their upcoming album, Above the Static. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
It's been wild. It's been absolutely amazing. It's our first time working with Pure Noise, so it's really nice to meet their fan base. One of the best and biggest things about our band is we like to build a positive community around us everywhere we go. So to be able to sort of access a whole new bunch of people through them has been absolutely amazing. The pre-sales have gone through the roof already. We've sold out some of the color configurations.
Oh, goodness.
It's all been a bit nuts, to be honest, but really positive, and we're really excited.
Hell yeah. Album rocks.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
So are you able to touch on the theme of the album along with the title and how it ties into the lyrics and the overall message?
Absolutely. So for us, there's enough. There's so much. Sorry, I've got a little puppy here. She's eating my hands. Hang on a second.
Are we able to meet the puppy?
This is Agnes, everybody. She's a little rescue puppy from Macedonia. So,
hi, Agnes.
So for us, the title really derives from how little headspace everybody has nowadays, right? So like in the modern world, there's so much distortion, there's so much interference, and we all live in these like propagated systems of right-wing media and, you know, having to live in fear all the time as a form of control. So for us, the themes throughout the album are about solidarity and mental health and family and community, all whilst, you know, not forgetting that there's a fucking fight to be had, you know? So Above the Static for us was all about headspace and taking risks and seeing how far we could sort of push ourselves up into the stratosphere and really just trying to rise above all that extra interference noise.
Absolutely.
All right. So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for this album?
Yeah, hell yeah. This was a really strange one for us. So during COVID, we loaded up the car full of everything that we could fit. So a desk and amps and all this sort of stuff. And we drove the whole length of the UK, which I admittedly to you guys probably isn't that far. We drove 6-7 hours to the other side of the UK. To a place called Blackpool, which used to be a very bustle and seaside like place to go and, you know, sort of stay at home, staycation holiday, but now is very run down and yeah, sort of crime levels through the roof and that sort of stuff. So we went there just to see if we could get demos down more than anything else. And we went to an old Victorian pub and we turned each floor into a different stage of the recording or writing process. So again, we only meant to go there to do pre-promo and pre-production. And instead, we kind of looked at each other after we did the drums on maybe track 1, which I think was Flatlined, and kind of looked at each other and went, oh shit, this sounds massive. Like we could do this. So then it was just a case about, you know, how immersed we could be. So we would stay up till 3-4 in the morning, you know, just creating and recording. Then we'd wake up the next morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. Someone would whack the coffee on, press play on what we did the night before. You know, and when Bleary Eyes had sort of finished, we would start recording again straight away. So the beautiful thing was, you know, we had drums in one space and guitars in another space and vocals in a cupboard. So like, if you had an idea, you could just go and really get into that straight away. So you could go and run things over as a rhythm section, or you could go and run things over, you know, if we knew a song needed a new top line, we would go and work on that in a separate space. So it was a completely immersive and completely accidental writing process. And like before that, we were recording with Tim Armstrong in LA, and we were like, you know, talking to Ted Hutt, who does Dropkick Murphys and Gaslight Anthem and people like that. So we were all geared up to go to a big fancy studio with all the bells and whistles, and instead we ended up with all of the amps that we could fit in the back of a battered old Ford Mondeo, and kind of just managed to bottle lightning whilst we were there. So it was a really fun, different and immersive process.
That's crazy.
Hell yeah, it's awesome. So what song off this album took longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
Oh, going in hard. Laura's got the questions. The longest to write is probably maybe Flatlined, because it came from like other ideas from before, right? So we had 2 or 3 different song ideas, and we really loved the pre-chorus, for example, but we knew we weren't using it properly. So we kind of put that in with a couple of different ideas and then knocked the edges off it and then ran it live a bunch. But that was definitely one of the most collaborative efforts. The song I love the most, I would say, is a song called Lighthouse Keeper. And that's just a really vulnerable piano and vocals. We took a bunch of mushrooms and turned all the lights off, and like sent everyone else out the room. So it was just myself and Alex, who's the pianist. And that started off as, I mean, I wrote that on an acoustic guitar, and I don't know if either of you two write at all, but normally when songs just fall out almost fully formed, you're like, oh, okay, like that's as close to the authentic emotion as we could possibly get. So I wrote it like that. Then it turned into this rock and roll song, and then it was there still felt like friction, like emotional friction for me between where the song was and, again, the authentic, genuine emotion that I was trying to convey with the lyrics. So we took some risks. We stripped everything back again, took some mind-altering substances and turned the lights off. And what we were left with was this really beautiful, poignant, vulnerable song. And it's definitely my favorite because it's the most vulnerable. As a singer, it's the most vulnerable I've ever been, like, to share music with other people. So that and the fact that, you know, being a lighthouse keeper for mental health is really important to me. So I have ADHD. I've always suffered with anxiety. I say suffered. I've always dealt with anxiety and depression and things like that. So being able to use that as a light to keep other people off the rocks, that's something that has really resonated with me. And I'm really proud of the way that song came out.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
How did taking mushrooms and taking those substances, how did they affect you while creating music? Like, does that help you get in the right headspace? Does it give you new ideas? What does that do?
I think at the time it was just the right moment and the right substance and the right process. Like, I'm not sure that we would ever get like Led Zeppelin, where you're constantly taking drugs or substances to get to that creative, you know, oasis in the desert of crap ideas. So I think that for us, you know, half the band are completely teetotal and sober, and like a couple of them are recovering alcoholics. And then for the rest of us, we've got like a fairly healthy or healthy-ish relationship with that sort of stuff. So where this process was completely immersive and where we were in this one space, it was totally safe for us to do that. You know, it was totally safe for us to be surrounded by our best friends on this musical journey. And in that moment, those substances sort of helped us to again, just push the envelope a little bit more. I'm not an advocate of everyone, again, sort of, of having to do that in order to reach it. But for that moment, again, that process, that immersive experience, it really just enabled us to, just put all of our hang-ups at the door. Like, I'm a fan of nootropics and mushrooms anyway. I think that there are studies and very modern studies that show that they do an incredible job with bridging the gap between like childhood trauma and central nervous system. And I think that to be aware of that, and also just to kind of say, oh, fuck it, we're having some fun. Like, it really puts you in a bit of a headspace where it's just okay to create, and whatever comes out, and, you know, like, be weird and wacky and wonderful. And again, because we weren't in this big studio that was costing us thousands of pounds a day, we could afford to do that. And if it didn't work, then it fuck it, we took a chance and it didn't work. But
exactly, you're able to write it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah. So how'd the track list for your album come about? Did you guys write the opener be the opener, closer be a closer? Did you shuffle around and see what fits? What was that process like?
Oh, dude, I was so wrinkly from sitting in the bath trying to work out the correct track listing from this thing. Like, I would go and I would sit there and I would like go into Logic and put them all in position, then bounce it as an album and sit there and be like, no, this is it. I've got it. This is have you guys seen High Fidelity, the film? So it's about making, you should watch it. You'd love it. Like, it's about making the perfect mixtape as well. And it's a journey, right? So you're trying to go through these different emotional stages. So no is the short answer. None of those songs were ever written to be the exact way that those songs came out. Call Me on the Way Home is such a big, beautiful opener because it's so catchy and it's so poppy, and the chorus is so sort of triumphant that you know, it to me is like a great handshake on an album. And we ended up writing Going Forwards, which is the ender. We ended up writing that way after we'd finished the rest of the album. So that was because we kind of felt that there wasn't a sort of self-biographical snapshot of where we were throughout the rest of the album. So those two kind of made sense, and the rest of it is just a bit of a trial and error. I wanted Lighthouse Keeper to be track 1, side 2, So that normally would fall about track 7, which I think it does on this one. But again, because of vinyl split times, you've got to kind of keep to 20, 25 minutes per side. So you kind of know where you get to. And because that beautiful piano line just comes out of the darkness, out of nowhere. And, to me, that was always going to be the best way to sort of start the next side. So when we had those 3 points in and locked in, it was just a case of filling in the gaps.
So you kind of designed the track list to work well with vinyl?
Absolutely. That we live in a single market now, right? Like we all understand that you can have 2 songs and you can become massive. And we all live and access music now pretty much via different streaming platforms. Obviously, whatever you use, Spotify being the main one. I think for people that whatever track list you write, your 1 single or your 2-3 singles that come out from that album, they're going to be the ones that Spotify put. Like we've been put on all the new rock playlists and the indie playlists, and there are B-sides on the album that people probably won't hear if they only access their music through Spotify. So nowadays it's almost like a free swing. You can make the vinyl track list what you want to be the track list of the album, because that's how people are going to access the music as a whole overall in the modern market.
For sure.
Understood. So would you be able to tell us where your headspace is at while you're creating this record?
For sure. I think there's always this like beautiful, weird moment where you've made something and you don't want anyone else to see it. You're like, we've created this beautiful, weird, wonderful baby with many different genres and many different points to make. And then for a while, you're like, don't look at it. Nobody look at it. Nobody breathe on it. Nobody even acknowledge that it exists in case the bubble bursts. And then after a while, you're like, oh shit, we actually have to show this to people. Like we're gonna have to get feedback at some point. So the headspace when we were making this one was really hopeful. We knew that the songs we had were really good, like without sounding like a bit of an arse. We knew that there were songs on there that we absolutely loved, and that we couldn't wait for other people to hear and share as well. So I think where we all doubled down on taking risks, and again, I keep using that, but it really was a theme that ran throughout the entire writing process. We had 50 plus songs that we ended up whittling down to the track listing. So we've got a team full of writers now, right? So out of the 7 of us in the band, I think there are like 5 or 6 solid songwriters that can write a song from start to finish by themselves. So we had lots of ideas. So I think when you're in that position, you can kind of rest in hope, knowing that, whatever you pick is hopefully going to be what everyone decides. And we're a real round table band, right? So there are songs in that 50 that I would have had over some of the ones that made the final cut, and that's totally fine. That's all part of being a group of people and actually listening to each other and respecting each other's ideas and opinions on what makes a good album. So the headspace was wild, especially because we were all during COVID. I know that like everyone probably in all your interviews at the minute are going to be talking about how COVID affected them and how they did things differently and all this sort of stuff, but the truth of the matter is it really did, like, especially for creative. And we were a touring band for this, right? So we are still again now, but it's taken us COVID to get up and running again. So we always kind of just figured that would be our life forever. We just run around the globe with our best friends, making a noise, and people would go, oh, that's great, let's go see you again. But because of COVID, we had to reevaluate everything that we were thinking and how we did it. And it enabled us to have a little more freedom than we had before. And I think also it gave us a little bit more time to sort of take more risks and to dive a bit deeper into what we thought the sound could be.
Absolutely. You said you had about, I'm sorry, Shane. You said you had like about 50 songs to pick from to get for this album. What was that process like, whittling down that massive amount of songs to the final track list?
It was out there. We made lists. I remember once we were supporting the Bouncing Souls out in, I want to say St. Louis or somewhere like that, maybe Cleveland. Oh, wow. And we would all, someone objective, so one of the other guys I think it was from the Souls, would read out a song, and none of us could look at each other, and we would all vote 1, 2, or 3 behind our backs, like 3 being the most of how much we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then we took all the points and like divided it so we had an average per song of what things got. And
God
you know,
damn.
that process, yeah, but I mean that process was a crapshoot because the song that everyone voted 3 on didn't even make the album in the end.
Where?
A clear front runner, and it didn't even get on. So we definitely went round the houses with it. Again, after a while, you kind of just resign yourself to the fact that once you've written it and once you put it out, it no longer belongs to you. You know, it becomes something for everybody to engage with. And you know, like we have people come up to us all the time and go, "Oh, what does this song mean?" And I go, "Oh, well, it's about the duality and the struggle between parents and children." And they're like, "No, no, 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 this is about my brother." And you're like, "Okay,
Sure.
If you want it to be, sure.
I don't know the guy, but fine.
Absolutely, literally. Oh, well, I mean, who am I to tell you that you're wrong? Like, I wrote it in this headspace, and you've taken it in this headspace. So
Yeah.
great, like let it live for everybody, you know. So that process was well and truly wild. And towards the end of it, again, we kind of resigned ourselves to the fact that we were going to have to pick songs. We were going to have to, out of these songs, we were going to have to choose our favorite, you know, inverted commas, favorite 12. And so that's what we did. So maybe one day there'll be a B's and C's that come out from this album. I'm going to plan on a solo album to come out towards either the end of this year or the beginning of next year,
Nice.
which is some of my favorite ideas, which didn't go all the way through as band ideas.
Oh wow.
So yeah, we're not overly precious about like it being my idea, you know. Again, with that trust and mutual respect in the band, it's good for everyone to get their voice heard. And you know, if you go to that ego place, that blame place, that's not a creative place.
Mm-mm.
You know, that's not a place that encourages people to be open and honest and share the most beautiful, authentic, or vulnerable bits about themselves. And that's, for me, that's what I'm about. You know, like music should be a vehicle for emotion, and ego stands well and truly in the way of that. And I just don't fuck with it. So
Fair enough.
Real.
So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this album for the first time? If they do it in the car with friends, in the dark with headphones on, is it a workout album, party album? What do you personally recommend?
Nice, because it's such an eclectic album. There are songs on there for most of those vibes that you've discussed, right, and mentioned. I think that for me personally, it's a put it on vinyl, turn it up, turn the lights down, sit there and engage with it, you know. But it definitely is an A-side B-side record. So the A-side is way more party, you know. There's loads of big riffs, there's loads of big synth lines like "Can Call Me on the Way Home." One thing about Bar Stool Preachers, you can always count on a really solid, catchy chorus. So that's kind of prevalent throughout. But yeah, I mean, maybe put it on as the last album of the night before your friends leave, so you can, you know, really lap up the party and then bring it in and everybody focus on side B as Lighthouse Keeper kicks it off.
Oh,
Nice.
I like that. I like that idea a lot. So this one should be super, super quick off the top of your head. I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
Okay. Energetic, heartfelt,
Mhm.
and 3. That's the problem. You use 2 and then you got 12 that come up. Energetic, heartfelt, and catchy. I'm just going to go real middle of the road and say catchy. It's either that or it's fun, you know, and I don't want to, I could use a million different adjectives for all of those things, you know, poignant, authentic, but, you know, heartfelt, I think is a big one. We always try and talk about things that we know for us. You know, we're not going to go and speak from other people's voices. We have to speak from what we know as our truths. You know, so that we're always trying to write heartfelt lyrics.
Absolutely. So in that same train of thought, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want listeners to have while going through the album?
No.
Damn.
No,
All right.
straight up. No, genuinely, not to shut it down, Shane. It's a great question, but like we spoke about before, the idea of ownership within music to me is bizarre. So the idea that I can impact anyone's emotions in a way that I want to kind of feels on a base level quite manipulative, and I go, and that's not really what I would like to associate with this. I'd like everybody to listen to it with an open mind and an open heart, and really kind of see what falls out for them.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Makes sense. So are you able to talk about any particularly challenging or standout moments during the process of the album?
Yeah, absolutely. there were bits for me personally as the vocalist and lyricist that were really difficult to record, just because they brought back a lot of uncomfortable and painful emotions. You know, like there's a bit in Flatline which drops down to, I think it's piano, violin, and just like spoken word, and that's quite difficult because that was a very personal moment. You know, like all of that stuff happened, so it's that was very, very difficult. There were a couple of songs that we just couldn't fit right. You know, that even through to the last mixes, we struggled with finding how they felt most comfortable. And then on the flip side to that, you've got the process I described earlier with Lighthouse Keeper, which was incredibly authentic and incredibly sort of, you know, of the moment, and All Turned Blue, which was our last single out, most recent single out, with the really beautiful animated video, and that one was an idea that Carl had. Carl's the guitarist. That was an idea that Carl and I had, and the other guys hadn't heard it before we went in to record, and we were like really wrestling with this other song called Late Night Transmissions, and couldn't get that to flow in the way that we wanted to, which is fine, you know, it's all part of the process. And instead, Carl and I looked at each other and went, what about this one? So we played it to the guys on, like, literally out of the phone speaker. We're like, listen to this. And we kind of had a cigarette outside and huddled and listened to it. And then the drummer, Wibbs, went straight in, laid it first time. Then the bassist went in and laid it first. And, like, it just came together so beautifully. So, yeah, that was one of the standout moments from me, for sure.
So picture this: you're on tour, you're at a gas station for a rest stop. What is your snack of choice?
Before I was vegan, it used to be whatever bad pizza I could grab. That would always be the solid one. And, you know, ain't no shame in going for a gas station pizza. Like, you live your life.
Maybe a little shame.
A little shame, but like the right amount of shame, you know, like self-care shame. It's either that or feel worse in the morning. So, yeah, that for me. In the UK, obviously, it's completely different to touring in America. I like Bear Claws in America. Yeah, like, again, a real pre-packaged one that's going to run out in 2047. Like, I'll eat one of them happily. In the UK and Europe, I would say, do you have Calippos? You know what Calippo is?
Is it like the little drink?
It's like a little ice pop, like an ice pop. What do you guys call them?
Ice pop? Oh, yeah, ice pops.
Yeah, like it's like a cola flavored ice pop. So as a singer, after 2 weeks on the road, when you've got another 3 to go, your throat starts hurting a bit and your voice starts to be a bit croaky. So first thing in the morning, coffee in one hand and an ice pop in the other is a snack of choice. Weird,
it's a strange combination.
The remedy for the sore throat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the coffee, otherwise, you know, you just don't function as a human being, and then the ice pop to really bring it home.
So on the topic of food, if the band was a dish, what dish would the band be and why?
Oh, love that. What would the band be and why? Nowadays, the band would be a large vegan pepperoni pizza because everyone loves it. Like, it's one of those ones that, you know, you can share a slice with your auntie, you can share a slice with your best mate, you know, you can eat a whole one on your own and don't feel too bad about it, or you can split. I think that would be one of the front runners for me. I think in terms of the Anglo foods, I think we would be a big hearty breakfast, probably with a side of French fries.
Right.
Again, a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but you know, you're gonna get nice and full up.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. So for the last couple of questions, we're gonna shift completely away from music and go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
Last meal for me personally would be... That's a hard one again. I think the last meal for me on death row would probably be bangers and mash. Yeah, bangers and mash. Yeah, bangers and mash with a gin and tonic.
Okay.
I still don't really know what bangers and mash is. I just know it's like a stereotypical, like, British thing.
It's just not in my head.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like a massive mound of mashed potatoes covered in gravy, not your gravy, but our gravy. And then with sausages, normally with some onions on top, and then like loads of like part-boiled, real hearty countryside veg. So like a cabbage or spring greens and broccoli and carrots and sweet corn and that sort of stuff. So yeah, again, proper proper what we would call peasant food over here, but all of us boys come from, you know, working class backgrounds, and that's what we were all sort of brought up on is you know, a bunch of cheap sausages and potatoes. So yeah,
All
It's
right.
good food.
Yeah.
It's good food. And then
It's
your
good.
drink.
Gin and tonic all day long.
You already said that. My bad.
Oh,
Gin. I was
no.
so overtaken by what is bangers and mash. I completely missed the gin and tonic. Gotcha.
Never ever feel sorry for making me repeat the words gin and tonic. That's three of my favorite words in the English language.
So if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
That's hard, right? Because a lot of my favorite fiction crosses over into the real world. So if I had a choice, especially as a younger person, I would have 100% gone to Hogwarts. Like that wouldn't have even been a question in my mind. I also think that Narnia's got a lot of positives. There's a lot of escapism that goes there. But I think now as an adult, there's a book called Name of the Wind. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's probably my favorite book of all time. And there's a character in there called Quoth, and I would live in that world with him, and I would definitely be his best friend.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
All right.
I love it.
So I have the honor of asking the last question, and every single person that we've spoken to have said that it is the most important question.
Do it.
What's your favorite color?
Mine, new leaf green.
Oh,
Okay. I like how specific you got.
yeah.
Well, absolutely. As you can't just go with green. There's a million different greens, right? But new leaf green for me is definitely the one. If I was going to psychoanalyze that, I'd say because of the new beginnings and trying to maintain a level of hope in life. But also it's just a really nice color.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So as I said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Only, obviously, the album coming out on Pure Noise Records on March 31st. The pre-order's up now. We're touring extensively, like all across the world, coming back to our American family as well. That's amazing. We're doing punk rock bowling. We're playing towns we've never played before. Like we're going to New Orleans. I can't wait to go to New Orleans. We're going to Houston and Austin and places like that. So touring is something that I'll try and plug massively. We go to Europe, then we go to the UK, then we do America, then we do Europe again, and then it's festival season, then it's back to America. So we start in like a month. Yeah, we start in like a month, and then we don't really get home till probably October now. Jeez. So that's what I would plug. Whilst I've got the moment, I would just remind people to be fucking good to each other, because we do, no matter how much escapism and how much music can take us to another place, shit's hard right now. You know, there are lots and lots of things that as a global community we should be angrier about. So yeah, I would just say rule number one, just to remind everyone, don't be a dick.
Yep.
Yeah. All
That's
right.
what I always say.
Yep.
That's it.
Well, thank you for now. This has been Tom from the Bar Stool Preachers, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.